At my own Christmas Eve dinner table, my daughter Amanda served her husband and children a holiday feast. When she reached me, she set down a plate of cold leftovers. "I only made enough for those who contributed this year," she announced for everyone to hear. This wasn't about food. It was a declaration of war, and they had no idea who they were dealing with. Quick pause, subscribe, hit like, and drop your city in the comments so I can say hi next time. Let me back up. My name is Margaret, but everyone has called me Maggie since I was a little girl. I'm 67, and until a year ago, I was married to the love of my life, Frank, for 48 years. We built this life together in Maple Creek, a quiet town outside of Columbus. This house, the one Frank hammered and sawed and perfected, was our fortress. It was paid off 20 years ago, on the day our last mortgage payment cleared. I remember Frank waltzing me around the living room, holding the paid-in-full letter from the bank. "No one can ever take this from us, Maggie girl," he'd said, his voice thick with pride. Our daughter, Amanda, was our only child. I loved her, of course, but somewhere along the line, she married Todd, a man who always seemed to be looking for the easy way out, and a bit of his laziness seemed to rub off on her. After Frank passed from a sudden heart attack last fall, the silence in this three-bedroom house was deafening. Amanda and Todd started coming around more, ostensibly to help. "Oh, Mom, let me handle the bills," Amanda would say, plucking the mail from my hands. "You've got enough on your mind." Todd would tinker in the garage, supposedly fixing things, though I mostly just heard him on his phone, talking about investment opportunities that always seemed to be just around the corner. I was grieving, and frankly, I was exhausted. I let them. I trusted my own daughter. What mother wouldn't? I let her set up online accounts for my utilities and Social Security deposits. She had all my passwords. It just seemed easier that way. The first real alarm bell, after the sickening performance on Christmas Eve, rang 4 days later. The holiday had been a blur of humiliation. I'd quietly eaten my slice of old meatloaf while they feasted, my grandchildren pointedly refusing to look me in the eye. I excused myself early and cried in the bedroom Frank and I had shared, clutching his old flannel shirt that still smelled faintly of sawdust and Old Spice. But on December 29th, a letter arrived. It wasn't in the usual stack of junk mail and catalogs. It was a thick, formal envelope from a financial institution I'd never heard of, North Star Lending. I slid it open with the silver letter opener Frank gave me. My eyes scanned the words, but my brain couldn't quite catch up. Final notice, delinquent payment on home equity line of credit account hashtag 785-33B, it read. To avoid initiation of foreclosure proceedings, a payment of $2,417.58 is due by January 5th. Foreclosure? Line of credit? My heart hammered against my ribs. Frank and I were religious about debt. We used one credit card for groceries, which we paid off in full every single month. Our home was free and clear. It was our legacy. My hand trembled as I read the principal balance listed on the statement, $148,500. A cold dread, colder than the Ohio winter outside, seeped into my bones. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake, some kind of elaborate scam mail. I smoothed the paper out on my kitchen table, next to the tin where I kept my recipes. My hands were shaking so hard the paper rattled. I called the number on the statement. After a 10-minute hold listening to Tinny Vivaldi, a polite but firm woman named Brenda answered. I explained that I'd received a notice in error, that I had no account with them. "Ma'am, can you confirm your address for me?" I did. "And your social security number?" With a sense of rising panic, I gave it to her. There was a pause and the clatter of keyboard keys. "Okay, Mrs. Miller, I do have your account right here." The HELIC was opened on September 12th of this year. Our records show an initial disbursement of $50,000 on September 15th and several subsequent withdrawals. "That's impossible," I whispered, my voice hoarse. I never signed anything. I've never even heard of your company." Brenda's voice softened slightly. "Ma'am, the application was processed online, and the closing documents were signed and notarized. We have a copy of the paperwork right here." The signatures were verified. My signature? I hadn't signed any loan documents since Frank and I bought our Buick a decade ago. Could you send me a copy of what you have? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Of course, ma'am. I'll email it to the address we have on file. A moment later, my little laptop pinged. The email address she read back to me wasn't mine. It was Amanda. Todd. Holmes@gmail.com. Amanda and Todd. My own daughter. The air left my lungs in a rush. I fumbled with my laptop, my fingers feeling thick and clumsy. I didn't know the password to that email account. Of course I didn't. It was theirs. I felt a wave of nausea. I had to see those documents. The next morning, I drove my Buick to the Fairfield County Recorder's office. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The county building was an imposing old brick structure downtown, filled with the quiet rustle of paper. I felt small and out of place. A helpful woman with a kind face named Sharon looked up my property records. And there it was, filed on September 14th, a lien against my property from North Star Lending. I can print the document for you, Han, she said gently, sensing my distress. She handed me a 5-page packet. I sat on a hard wooden bench in the hallway and read. It was a legal document detailing the home equity line of credit for $150,000 secured by my house. And at the end, on the signature line, was my name. Margaret Miller. But it wasn't my signature. I had spent 30 years as a bookkeeper before I retired. I knew my own hand. This signature was close, but the loop on the G was too wide, the M too sharp. It was a forgery. A decent one, but a fake nonetheless. And below it was a notary stamp. The name read Chad Biggs with a commission date and number. It was dated September 12th. I tried to think. September 12th. It was a Tuesday. I remember that day distinctly. It was my Quilting Circle's weekly meeting at the church basement. I was there from 10 a.m. until well after 2 p.m. We were working on a quilt of valor for a returning soldier. There were a dozen women who could verify I was there the entire time. There was no way I could have been at a notary's office signing loan papers. As I sat there on that bench, the pieces started clicking into place, each one a separate blow to my heart. Amanda asking for my mail. Todd's constant talk about needing a little capital for a surefire business venture. The new, gleaming Ford F-150 he'd suddenly bought in October, which he'd claimed was from a surprise work bonus. The designer handbag Amanda was carrying on Christmas Eve, the one she said she'd found on a clearance rack. They weren't helping me. They were robbing me. The humiliation of Christmas Eve wasn't just a random act of cruelty. It was part of the plan. They were building a narrative. Mom is old. Mom is a burden. Mom doesn't contribute. It was the groundwork to justify whatever they were planning to do next, maybe convince a judge I was incompetent, maybe push me into a home, all while they lived off the equity Frank and I had spent our lives building. My grief for Frank turned into a white-hot rage. He would have been devastated. But then another feeling pushed through the anger, his voice in my memory. You're the smart one, Maggie girl. Always were. Frank was the muscle, but I was the strategist. He never made a big decision without running the numbers with me first. He called me his secret weapon. And as I sat there, holding the proof of my daughter's betrayal, I decided she and her useless husband were about to find out just how strategic I could be. This wasn't just my house. It was Frank's house. And they were not going to take it. Not from me. Not while I still had a breath in my body. My first call wasn't to a lawyer. It was to my best friend, Carol. Carol and I have been friends since our daughters were in kindergarten together. She'd spent her whole career as a paralegal for a tough-as-nails litigation firm before retiring. If anyone knew about documenting a case, it was her. I drove straight from the courthouse to her neat little condo, the forged document clutched in my hand. I laid it all out on her dining room table. The letter from North Star, the printed lien, the memory of Christmas Eve. I cried for the first time since discovering the fraud, my body shaking with sobs of anger and betrayal. Carol let me cry for a few minutes, making us a pot of strong tea. Then she slid a box of tissues toward me and tapped the forged document with a perfectly manicured finger. Okay, Maggie. "The crying is done," she said, her voice calm and firm. "Now we go to work. We're going to build a case so airtight that by the time we're done, these two won't know what hit them." Her pragmatism was like a splash of cold water. It was exactly what I needed. For the next 3 days, Carol's condo became our war room. She had me make a list of everything. "Details, Maggie. Details win cases," she chanted like a mantra. I wrote down the date of the new truck, the brand of Amanda's purse. We went online. Amanda, bless her vain heart, had posted pictures of it all over her public social media pages. A picture of her on November 5th, captioned, "My wonderful hubby Todd surprised me with a little something. #BestHusband, #Louis Vuitton." Then a post from Todd, standing in front of his new truck at a dealership on October 20th. "Time for an upgrade. #Work hard, play hard." The truck alone was over $70,000. Carol printed everything with timestamps. The next step was tracking the money. Amanda had my bank passwords. I had foolishly trusted her. I sat at my laptop, took a deep breath, and clicked Forgot Password. I had the security question reset to my phone. A few minutes later, I was in. And my stomach dropped. My savings account, which had held the $60,000 from Frank's life insurance policy, was down to less than $500. I clicked through the statements. A transfer of $50,000 to an unknown account on September 15th, the exact date of the first Helic disbursement. Another transfer of $10,000 in October. This wasn't just home equity theft. They had drained my life savings, too. They had left me with almost nothing. The scope of their greed was breathtaking. I felt myself start to spiral, the panic rising in my chest again. They hadn't just stolen from my future, they'd stolen Frank's last gift to me, the money meant to keep me secure. "Stay till the end, I'll show the truth." Carol saw the look on my face. She put a hand on my shoulder. "Breathe, Maggie. This is just more evidence. Print it." Every single transaction. We printed a year's worth of statements. The big transfers were obvious. But there were smaller ones too. Hundreds of dollars every week, moved to an account I didn't recognize. Charges for fancy restaurants, online clothing stores, even a recurring charge for a golf club membership. They'd been using my money like their own personal ATM for months. We created a binder, thick with evidence. Social media posts, bank statements, the forged lien. Each page was a new stab of betrayal. During this time, Amanda and Todd would call or text. "Just checking on you, Mom." Amanda texted one morning with a little heart emoji. "Thinking about dropping off some lasagna later." The hypocrisy made me physically ill. I texted back a simple, "I'm fine, dear. A little under the weather." No need. I had to play the part of the frail, clueless old widow a little longer. It was the hardest acting job of my life. I'd hang up the phone and my hands would be shaking. Todd even left a voicemail. "Hey Maggie, it's Todd. Heard you're not feeling well. Just wanted to see if you needed anything. You know we're always here to manage things for you." Manage things. The arrogance was stunning. I saved that voicemail. It was Exhibit D in our growing binder of deceit. Our next target was the notary, Chad Biggs. A quick Google search revealed he worked out of a small shipping and printing shop in a strip mall about 20 minutes away. But Carol found something more interesting. On Todd's social media, there were several pictures from a men's softball league team 2 summers ago. And standing right next to Todd, beer in hand, grinning at the camera, was our notary, Chad. They were friends. This wasn't random. This was a conspiracy. Carol formulated a plan. She called the notary's office, pretending to be a researcher from the National Notary Association doing a random quality control audit. It was a complete bluff, but she sounded so official. "Mr. Biggs," she said crisply into her phone, "I'm calling about a notarization you performed on September 12th for a Margaret Miller. We have a discrepancy in our records, and I need you to confirm the time of the signing from your notary journal." There was a long pause. We could hear the faint sound of flipping pages. Yeah, here it is," Chad said, his voice shaky. "Margaret Miller. Signed at, 11:15 a.m. Bingo. I looked at the program from my church, which listed the quilting circle schedule. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Tuesday. My alibi was rock solid. Chad had just lied, and he had tied himself to a specific time, a time I could prove I was miles away, surrounded by a dozen witnesses. He had no idea he had just helped us tie the noose. But we still needed more. We had proof of the fraud, the theft, and the conspiracy with the notary. But convincing the bank and law enforcement could take months, even years. In the meantime, the foreclosure clock was ticking. North Star Lending wanted their payment, and they didn't care whose signature was on the page. I looked at the calendar. January 5th was just days away. My perfect, safe world, built over nearly 50 years with my husband, was about to crumble. And I was running out of time. Part 2 halves. The January 5th payment deadline loomed over me like a guillotine. Carol and I were sitting at my kitchen table, the binder of evidence now a full 4 inches thick. It was damning, but it felt abstract. The foreclosure notice on my counter was real. My savings were gone. I couldn't make the payment. I felt a surge of pure terror, imagining a sheriff's notice tacked to the door Frank had so carefully painted Charleston green. I put my head in my hands. Carol, what am I going to do? It's not enough. By the time this gets through the courts, I'll be homeless. Carol calmly took a sip of her tea. No, you won't, she said. We have the what, the where, and the who. Now we need the why, straight from the horse's mouth. We need a confession. She looked at me intently. Maggie, are you a good actress? A memory flashed in my mind. Amanda, in 3rd grade, playing a tree in the school play. She'd been so nervous, she forgot her one line. I had stood in the wings, mouthing the words for her, tears in my eyes from love and pride. I never imagined that one day I'd have to perform for her, for the sake of my very survival. I looked at Carol and nodded, my jaw set. I can be. Her plan was simple and brilliant. Ohio is a one-party consent state for recording phone calls. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, me, it's perfectly legal. Carol set up her phone with a recording app and put it on speaker. I took a deep breath, picturing Frank's steady face, and dialed Todd's number. I was banking on his ego. He saw me as a dotty old woman, a problem to be managed. It was time to play the part. He answered on the second ring, his voice slick and falsely cheerful. Maggie, good to hear from you. Everything okay? I let my voice tremble. I pitched it a little higher, a little weaker. Oh, Todd. I don't know. I'm so confused. I let out a shaky sigh that I hoped sounded pathetic. I got another letter from that North Star company. It's so upsetting, and I don't understand these things now that Frank's gone. It says they're going to take the house. I made a little sobbing sound. On the other side of the table, Carol gave me a thumbs up. There was a pause on Todd's end. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. This was his chance to be the hero, to swoop in and condescendingly smooth things over. Now, Maggie, calm down, he said, his tone dripping with fake patience. We told you we'd handle the finances. You're not supposed to be opening that mail. Just give it to Amanda next time she stops by. But Todd, it says foreclosure. That's a scary word, I whimpered. What is this? Is it because of the money you needed for your new business? Is everything okay? It was a shot in the dark, a little bait. And he took it, hook, line, and sinker. He chuckled. It was an awful, arrogant sound. Maggie, listen. It's just paperwork. The business is going to be huge. We're just moving some assets around. The equity in this house was just sitting here, doing nothing. It's better to put it to work. Think of it as your contribution. Contribution. The same word Amanda had used on Christmas Eve. The red-hot rage flared up, but I stamped it down, sticking to the role. Oh, I said, as if a great, simple truth had dawned on me. So, you took the money from the house? You and Amanda signed for it? We signed, he said impatiently, eager to end the conversation. We have the power of attorney you gave us, remember? It's all perfectly legal. Now, stop worrying your pretty little head. We are managing your assets. Just let us handle it. We signed. Carol's eyes widened. She scribbled on a notepad, we got it. He just admitted to signing my name, tied it to the business, and referenced a power of attorney I never gave them. It was the nail in their coffin. I stammered a few more thank yous and hung up. The moment the call ended, I felt the performance drain out of me, leaving me exhausted but resolute. Carol saved the recording, emailing a copy to both of us immediately. It was our smoking gun. Keep watching, there will be justice. The very next morning, armed with our binder and the recording, we walked into the office of a highly recommended elder law attorney named Mr. Davis. He was a sharp, no-nonsense man in his 50s with tired eyes that had clearly seen the worst of human nature. He had me tell the story from the beginning. He listened patiently, occasionally stopping me to ask a pointed question. Then, he spent a solid hour going through our binder, page by page. He put on a pair of headphones to listen to the recording of Todd. When it was over, he took the headphones off, sat back in his large leather chair, and steepled his fingers. "Mrs. Miller," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "In my 25 years of practicing law, this is one of the most comprehensive and well-documented cases of elder financial abuse I have ever seen. You and your friend have done remarkable work." He looked at me with something approaching admiration. "You have them on bank fraud, wire fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The recording is ironclad. And Todd's claim about a power of attorney is a lie that's easy to disprove. We can check the county records. A POA, especially for real estate transactions, would need to be recorded." A quick search on his computer confirmed it. No POA on file. He laid out 2 paths. Path A: we go to the police and the district attorney. They press criminal charges. It would be a long, public, and messy process. Amanda and Todd would almost certainly face jail time, but recovering the money could take years of court-ordered restitution, if it happened at all. Path B: a private confrontation. We leverage the threat of criminal charges to force them into a settlement that makes me whole as quickly as possible. "It's your call, Mrs. Miller," he said. "Public justice or private recovery?" I thought of my grandchildren. I thought of the scandal in our small town. But most of all, I thought of the foreclosure notice. "I want my house safe," I said. "And I want the money back. All of it." Mr. Davis nodded. "Path B it is." He worked quickly. He first called North Star Lending's legal department. He explained the situation and emailed them a copy of the forged document next to my real signature, along with the affidavit from my entire quilting circle swearing I was with them on September 12th. He informed them a formal fraud report was being filed with the bank, law enforcement, and adult protective services. The threat of regulatory trouble and bad press for lending on a fraudulent document got their attention. Within an hour, they agreed to freeze the account and suspend all foreclosure activities pending an internal fraud investigation. A wave of relief washed over me so powerful I nearly wept. The wolf was away from the door. Next, Mr. Davis contacted the notary, Chad Biggs, on a recorded line. He didn't threaten, he simply stated the facts. He mentioned the term conspiracy to commit fraud, the penalties for which included permanent loss of his notary commission, thousands in fines, and potential jail time. He mentioned Todd's recorded admission. He offered Chad a simple choice: sign a sworn affidavit detailing how Todd paid him $500 in cash to notarize a document I was not present to sign, or become a co-defendant in a criminal case. Chad folded in under 5 minutes. His terrified, notarized affidavit arrived by courier the next morning. The final piece of the puzzle was the meeting. Mr. Davis scheduled it for Friday at his office. He sent a formal, intimidating letter to Amanda and Todd, requesting their presence for an urgent meeting regarding my estate. He didn't give any other details. I imagine they thought they were being called in to discuss putting me in a nursing home. I spent Thursday getting my affairs in order. I went to the bank, a new bank, and opened new accounts. I had my Social Security direct deposit moved. I called a locksmith and scheduled him to come to the house on Friday at precisely 3 p.m. to change every single lock, including the garage. On Friday, I sat next to Mr. Davis at his huge mahogany conference table. Carol sat beside me, her posture perfect. I wore my Sunday best, a crisp blue dress, and the string of pearls Frank gave me for our 40th anniversary. I wanted to look strong. I wanted them to see the woman they had underestimated. Amanda and Todd walked in looking smug and confident. Amanda was even carrying the new designer bag. They sat opposite us. "What's this all about, Mom?" Amanda asked, a little impatiently. "Is something wrong?" Mr. Davis didn't say a word. He simply reached over and pushed the thick binder toward the center of the table. Then he placed a small digital recorder next to it. He pressed play, and Todd's voice filled the silent room. "We are managing your assets. That equity in this house was just sitting here, doing nothing. It's better to put it to work." We signed. It's all perfectly legal. The color drained from both their faces. Amanda's mouth fell open. Todd looked like he had been punched in the gut. Mr. Davis stopped the recording. "Don't click away, he'll get what's coming." That, Mr. Davis said calmly, was the sound of you admitting to forgery and grand larceny. In this binder, he patted the thick folder, we have copies of the forged Helic documents. We have the bank statements showing the theft of Mrs. Miller's life savings. We have screenshots of your lavish purchases. We have a sworn, notarized confession from your friend Chad Biggs, detailing how you paid him to commit fraud. And we have filed reports with the bank's fraud unit and adult protective services. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Amanda began to tremble, her eyes darting between me and her husband. "You have two options," Mr. Davis continued, his voice like ice. "Option A, I pick up my phone, call the detective who is eagerly awaiting my call, and hand him this entire package. You will both be arrested and charged with multiple felonies. You will lose your jobs, your reputations, and very likely your freedom." He slid two documents across the table. "Or you choose option B. This is a confession of judgment. You will legally admit to the debt of $208,500. That's the Helic and the savings combined. This document allows Mrs. Miller to garnish your wages and place liens on your assets, including your home and vehicles, until every single cent is repaid. You will also sign this no-contact agreement, effective immediately. You will not call, email, or come within 500 feet of Mrs. Miller or her property ever again." Amanda burst into tears. "Mommy, no," she wailed. "We were just trying to help. Todd's business was going to pay it all back." I looked at my daughter, the baby I had rocked to sleep and whose scraped knees I had bandaged. I felt nothing. The woman who did this to me was a stranger. "You called a plate of leftovers my contribution, Amanda," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Now this," I tapped the confession on the table, "is going to be yours." They sat there for a long time, the silence broken only by Amanda's sobs. Todd, a coward to his very core, picked up the pen first. He signed without looking at me. Amanda followed, her signature streaked with tears. Mr. Davis's paralegal came in to notarize their signatures, a bitter, beautiful irony. As soon as it was done, they stood up to leave. Amanda looked at me, her face blotchy and pleading. "Mom, please," I just shook my head. "Goodbye, Amanda." They shuffled out of the office, their arrogance shattered, leaving the stench of their failure behind. My lawyer immediately filed the judgment with the court. I went home. The locksmith was already there, just as I'd planned. As he worked, I walked through the house, my house. I boxed up every photo of Amanda and Todd. Every school drawing, every holiday ornament they'd ever given me. I packed it all away. I was erasing them. When the locksmith was finished, he handed me a set of new, shiny keys. Holding them in my palm, I felt a sense of profound peace. It was over. I was safe. The aftermath was quiet. Through the town grapevine, I heard Todd's company fired him when his wages were garnished. They lost their house a few months later. I never saw or heard from them again. I had Mr. Davis rewrite my will. Frank and I had planned to leave everything to Amanda. Now, my entire estate will go to a trust benefiting the local animal shelter where we adopted our beloved beagle years ago. They even agreed to name the new cat sanctuary wing the Frank Miller Memorial Wing. He would have loved that. It's been a year now. The house is quiet again, but it's a peaceful quiet, not a lonely one. Carol and my friends from the quilting circle come over for dinner every Friday. My hydrangeas bloomed more beautifully this summer than ever before. Sometimes I think about that Christmas Eve, the plate of cold meatloaf, the smug look on my daughter's face. It was the cruelest moment of my life, but it was also the moment I woke up. It reminded me that I am not a frail, old woman. I am Margaret Miller. I am a bookkeeper, a quilter, a gardener, and the widow of a wonderful man. I am a strategist. And this is still my house. To all the women out there of any age, let my story be a quiet reminder. Keep your own bank passwords. Trust your instincts. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you haven't contributed. You built the world they live in. Don't let them forget it.
Your watch to the end. Be click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.